There has been an important new update today on Jackie from Ojai Raptor Center, and unfortunately, the past 24 hours have been extremely difficult. According to Ojai, Jackie's packed cell volume, her PCV, fell to below 6% yesterday. Today, it has risen to 9%. That rise is encouraging, but Ojai is very clear. Jackie remains critically ill. Her condition is unstable, and her overall condition remains extremely serious. Her case is now being closely evaluated by a collaborative team involving 9 veterinarians, together with representatives from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And for now, Ojai says there is no further medical information they can provide. So today we're going to respect that boundary. We're not going to guess what the medical team hasn't told us. Instead, we're going to examine what this new information actually means. Why is a PCV below 6% so alarming? What should we make of the rise back to 9? And perhaps most importantly, does this new pattern give us another clue about the mystery we've been following? Because this time, the number itself tells only half the story. Clue number 1. Below 6% changes the picture. Let's begin with that number, less than 6%. PCV, packed cell volume, tells us approximately what proportion of the blood volume is occupied by red blood cells. And red blood cells have one job that becomes absolutely critical here: transporting oxygen. So PCV below 6% does not mean Jackie has only 6% of her blood left. That's an important distinction. She still has circulating blood, but an extraordinarily small fraction of that blood volume consists of the red cells responsible for carrying oxygen. In avian medicine, blood products may already be considered in severe anemia at PCVs far above Jackie's current level. Published avian transfusion guidance discusses severe anemia below about 20% as a situation in which transfusion may be considered. So 6% is not simply a little lower than normal. It represents profound anemia. Think of blood as a transportation network. Your lungs may have plenty of oxygen available, but the oxygen still needs vehicles to carry it around the body. Those vehicles are red blood cells. Now imagine that highway suddenly has dramatically fewer vehicles available. The heart can keep pumping, the lungs can keep exchanging oxygen, but transporting enough oxygen to every tissue becomes increasingly difficult. And this is where a comparison with humans can help us understand the seriousness. Healthy human hematocrit commonly sits around 40%. At extremely low hematocrit levels, the body tries to compensate by increasing cardiac output, essentially circulating the available blood faster in an attempt to maintain oxygen delivery. The heart has to work harder. The pulse may accelerate. The brain can become affected by inadequate oxygen delivery. A severely anemic person may experience profound weakness, dizziness, confusion, shortness of breath, and in extreme situations, loss of consciousness. Other organs are not immune. The kidneys, liver, skeletal muscles, and heart itself all require continuous oxygen delivery. When anemia becomes profound enough, maintaining that delivery becomes increasingly difficult. Red cells are essential for tissue oxygenation, which is why severe anemia can rapidly become critical. Again, we should not assume Jackie is experiencing every symptom a human patient would experience. Bald eagle physiology is different, but the underlying principle remains. Fewer circulating red cells means less capacity to transport oxygen. And that puts the new number into perspective. Below 6% isn't simply another laboratory result. It tells us just how little physiological margin Jackie may have had at that moment. But then, something happened again that puzzles us. The number went back up after a drop. Clue number 2, 6 to 9. How much should we read into it? Today, Ojai reported Jackie's PCV at 9%. That's a substantial increase from below 6. And any movement in the right direction is understandably encouraging. But there are two very different ways to look at that number. Relative to yesterday, 9 is better than 6. Relative to a healthy eagle, 9 is still critically low. That's why Ojai did not describe Jackie as stable. They specifically described her condition as unstable and extremely serious. And there's another reason we have to be careful about interpreting this increase. We don't know what happened medically during those 24 hours. Ojai has not said whether Jackie received another transfusion. They haven't told us whether fluid therapy changed. They haven't told us whether the increase represents new red cell production. And they haven't said whether whatever was causing the previous decline has stopped. So the rise itself creates another question. What caused it? There are several broad possibilities veterinarians might consider when interpreting changing PCV values. One possibility is an actual increase in circulating red cells. Another is a change following medical intervention. Hydration can also influence measured PCV. For example, intravenous fluids can temporarily dilute avian blood and lower measured PCV. Experimental work in birds has demonstrated measurable hemodilution after 4 fluid administration. The opposite, changes in circulating fluid volume, can sometimes make the concentration appear higher without necessarily meaning the body suddenly created a large number of new red cells. And of course, natural, biological, and laboratory variation also has to be considered. That's why one number rarely tells the whole story. The most important question isn't simply, did PCV rise today? It's, can it stay up? And that brings us back to the clue we identified in our previous video. Clue number 3. The pattern is becoming harder to ignore. Jackie's medical story has not followed a simple upward line. Her PCV became dangerously low. Treatment and transfusion were followed by improvement. Her values rose into the teens. For a time, that looked encouraging. Then the number began falling again. And now, after previously dropping below 10%, we've learned that it fell even further, below 6%, and then back to 9%. Suddenly, the mystery becomes much easier to see. Low, up, down again, critically low, then partially back up. That pattern matters. Because if this were simply blood loss during the original confrontation and the bleeding had completely stopped, we would hope, broadly speaking, for the body eventually to move towards stabilization and regeneration. Instead, something appears to have made maintaining adequate red cell volume extremely difficult. That doesn't tell us what the cause is, but it sharpens the questions. Is Jackie continuing to lose red blood cells somewhere? Are red cells being destroyed after they enter circulation? Is her bone marrow producing replacements, but not quickly enough? Could fluid shifts be contributing to some of the changes? Or could more than one of these processes be happening at the same time? This is exactly why the bone marrow biopsy discussed in our previous episode becomes so important. Bone marrow is where new blood cells are produced. If veterinarians can determine whether Jackie's marrow is responding appropriately, that can help distinguish between a problem of loss or destruction and a problem of production. And the contrast CT may provide another piece of that puzzle by allowing the medical team to search for abnormalities inside the body that are not obvious from the outside. But we still don't know those results, which means today's new PCV doesn't solve the mystery. Clue number 4. Why 9 veterinarians matter. There's another detail in Ojai's announcement that deserves attention. 9 veterinarians are now involved in evaluating Jackie's care and condition. That does not tell us what diagnosis they suspect, and we shouldn't try to infer one from it. But it does tell us something about the complexity of the case. A difficult medical problem benefits from multiple perspectives: imaging, clinical pathology, avian medicine, critical care, wildlife rehabilitation. Those are examples of different areas that can contribute to understanding a complex patient. Not necessarily the specialties represented by Jackie's particular team, and representatives from both the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and California Department of Fish and Wildlife are also involved. Bald eagles have federal legal protection, and wildlife rehabilitation facilities operate within federal and state permitting frameworks, so coordination with wildlife authorities is an established part of caring for protected wildlife. But perhaps the most important sentence in Ojai's update is much simpler. Every decision, they say, is being guided by Jackie's medical condition and what is in her best interest. At this point, that's exactly where the focus belongs. The missing clues, what we still don't know. And despite today's important update, the biggest pieces of this medical mystery are still missing. We don't know why Jackie's PCV fell below 6%. We don't know exactly what caused it to rebound to 9. We still don't know what the contrast CT revealed. We still don't know what the bone marrow biopsy is telling the veterinary team about Jackie's ability to regenerate red blood cells. And perhaps most importantly, we don't yet know whether today's increase represents the beginning of stabilization or simply another fluctuation in the same dangerous pattern we've been watching. So tonight, there are two truths we can hold at the same time. 9% is better than below 6. That small improvement matters, but 9% remains critically low. And according to the people actually caring for Jackie, her condition remains unstable and extremely serious. So this is not the moment to declare a turnaround, and it isn't the moment to assume the worst either. It's the moment to follow the evidence, to give Jackie's medical team the time they need and to wait for the next meaningful clue. Because right now, the mystery isn't simply how low her PCV became. The mystery is why it keeps changing. And until we understand that, the investigation continues.